go ahead and get us started. So welcome, everyone. Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Drembus, and I am the genealogist for the William&M Bray School Lab. In service to the Bray School Lab's mission to uncovering, documenting, preserving, and disseminating the history and the legacies of the Williamsburg Bray School, we host a monthly series on Zoom in order to share recent genealogical findings, engage the descendant community in this work in order to broaden our understanding of the legacies, and enlist the help of historians, genealogists, as well as the general public in furthering the conversations and the research surrounding the Williamsburg Bray School. The title of the monthly series is Bray School Stories, and this evening's focus is Writing a New History. And we're going to be talking about this lovely publication, the Williamsburg Bray School book. But first, some housekeeping items. So once again, we are recording this session. It will be available later on our YouTube channel. And to find it, simply Google Bray School Lab YouTube. If you prefer not to be recorded, please feel free to access this later from our YouTube channel. We're trying out some enhanced technology in the lab to enable us to have a gathering of speakers in one place. So please bear with us while we navigate our way through this new world. Tanya is my very able co-host, and we have several people in our lab space trying out some new technology. And I'm thrilled that I am joined by a number of very special guests, both in person as well as online for this evening's session. First, I want to introduce Dr. Maureen Elgersman Lee and Nicole Brown, the co-editors of the Williamsburg Bray School book. And we are delighted to have with us this evening a number of the contributors to the book. So if you are a contributor to the book, if you could please introduce yourself by saying your name and your affiliation, that would be great, just so we know who's kind of with us and how many people have really contributed to this book. And you can go in any order.
I'm Dawn Edmiston. I am a professor of marketing at the School of Business at William & Mary, and I was a fellow in the Strategic Cultural Partnerships Program and have worked with our students in support of the Bray School, and could not be more thankful to all of you for this special opportunity to contribute to this book. Right here by my side.
Elizabeth, would you like to have everyone online go, and then the ones here in the room can go?
That's a great idea, yes. So any other contributors online that would like to introduce yourselves?
I am Yvonne Johnson. They call me Bonnie. I'm a member of the descendant community, and I was just happy to give voice to my ancestors.
Thanks, Bonnie.
I'm Terry Myers. I'm retired from William & Mary. I first started thinking about the structure that housed the Bray School about 20 years ago in a very uncertain way, and I'm just delighted to see how it's evolved and unfolded over time, and I think the book is absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, Terry. Any other contributors who are joining us via Zoom this evening who'd like to introduce yourselves? Okay.
Got me with a mouthful.
Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, all right. I'm Adam Kennedy. I'm James' son. And I contributed to the book, and I'm a member of the Senate community.
Terrific, great.
I'm Janice Kennedy, Adam's mother, and African-American community gave it Mandarin for Colonial Williamsburg, and I contributed to the book, and a member of the Senate community.
I'm Fallon Berner. I'm the Indigenous historian at Colonial Williamsburg and a contributor to the book. And I guess because I focused on the Brackerton Indian School, and so wanting to see what the similarities and differences were with the Bray School.
Terrific. Welcome everybody who's in our room. And I know that Burnell Irby has just joined us. Burnell, we're just having the contributors of the book introduce themselves. If you would, I know you just got on. If you'd like to introduce yourself, your name and your affiliation, we'd like to welcome you to the group.
Hello, everyone. My name is Burnell Irby. I was a contributor, and I often come, and my mother and I often present at the Lemon Conference, and that's how I met Nicole and everyone else through that, and they graciously offered me an opportunity to contribute, and I thank them immensely for that.
So,
We got one more in the room, Jack.
okay, we've got one online as well. Who you've got in the
Okay.
room, Tanya?
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead, who you got?
Oh, Jack.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Bridgeforth Williams. I am a contributor. I am a member of the descendant community. I am a retired employee of Colonial Williamsburg and the founder of a local nonprofit for educational equity. And I too am immensely grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this project. Thank you.
And I did notice that Johnette Gordon Weaver has joined us. Johnette, would you like to introduce yourself? We're glad you're here this evening.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is Johnette Gordon Weaver. I am a member of the descendant community. I am a contributor to the book, which I find terribly exciting. I love reading everybody's essays. I am a former interpreter for Colonial Williamsburg. I did that for about 3 or 4 years, back when Carter's Grove was still owned by the foundation. And I moved into the town, and the Bray School opened up a whole new world for me. I no longer have the exact same feelings I had when I was interpreting back then, and I'm a little loopy at the moment, so I'm gonna stop talking.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for everybody to be here, the contributors, as well as everyone else who is interested and has been following along either in our monthly Zoom sessions or is just curious about what's going on with the Williamsburg Bray School. Our monthly sessions are designed to spark conversation. So we definitely want to leave time for that. This evening is sure to spark quite a bit of discussion. And we're going to let the editors and the book contributors share, and then we'll open it up to the group. But let me go ahead and get started by sharing my screen and just a little bit of information here that I wanted to share. So I'm going to leave this barcode up just for a little bit because the book is available for sale, to purchase through the shops at Colonial Williamsburg. The last 2 weekends, there have been 2 book signings, and sales have been brisk, it appears. I'm going to have Maureen and Nicole share a little bit more about the structure of the book, but what we're really happy about is it is a collection of essays, and it really is a reflection on some of the records that have come through the research. And it's this beautiful community collaborative effort, and over half of the essays have been written by descending community members. And so we're extremely excited about this book. We're extremely proud of the work that everyone has kind of done to bring this book into being. And even I'll ask for Nicole and Maureen to even talk about just the cover of the book. But I want you all to just be able to take in a little bit right now what the cover looks like. You see the silhouette, you see that iconic picture of the school building, but then we also see the names of the children from one of the attendance lists. So that's just a little taste of that. So I wanted to be able to share that with you. And then a little bit of a peek inside. There are images of the original, some of the original documents, transcriptions of what our students have been able to do in our lab. Beautiful photographs taken by Grace Helmick, who is a member of the staff of Office of Strategic Cultural Partnerships. And I really wanted to be able to highlight the dedication of the book that Maureen and Nicole lovingly put together, because the book really does center around the students who attended the Williamsburg Bray School, and then the legacies of their time there. So that's just a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of a peek inside. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now and really welcome Maureen and Nicole to really kind of discuss the book and the process. And I'm going to have you guys take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think that, well, first of all, there's so many things I could say about this book, about the process, more importantly, the process, the journey of collaboration that brings us here tonight. But I think that as I reflect on this book, one of the important things to remember about the book, again, the Williamsburg Bray School, A History Through Records, Reflections, and Rediscovery. This book truly is, and I think it's already indicated by comments and introductions from contributors, this book is really at its heart a testament to the power of collaboration and what happens and what can happen across institutions, across communities, across ages and categories in service of lifting up a particular history. So I think that's kind of where I want to start. I want to say a little bit about kind of how we got here, also in terms of the journey, a bit about the arc of the book, and also we'll of course cede time also to Nicole to talk about it from her perspective as co-editor. So this is the first major book, obviously book project, but when I began as director of the Bray School Lab in 2021, I was thinking about goals and what are kind of big goals. And I knew that a book was part of that. So I imagined, I talked with Anne-Marie Stock, who was the presidential liaison for strategic cultural partnerships. Again, the William Mary Bray School Lab is a unit within the larger Office of Strategic Cultural Partnerships, or what we call SCP for shorthand, and was supported and also encouraged to think big. If you have met Anne-Marie, or if you will in the future, one of the things that she does so well is she encourages us to think big, to be expansive thinkers, and really challenged me to think about this book in a way that I hadn't thought about it before. And that really put us on the track to where we are. From there, it was, how will we kind of execute this book? And very clearly that the partner for this project was Nicole Brown. Nicole was already working as a graduate assistant in a slightly different form than she is presently. But regardless of that, and those are artificial kind of constraints, it was very clear that Nicole was going to be co-editor on this project. So happily, she said yes. In the midst of an already very busy life, she said yes to this project, and I continue to thank her for saying yes. And we brought along some other partners, William Mary Libraries staff, particularly Carrie Cooper, Dean of University Libraries, and Lisa Nickel, were also extremely helpful in helping us think, again, expansively, inclusively, and so on about this work, and also to make space for contributors to have time and space to participate. That included a write-a-thon, that included invitations to the faculty writing retreat, the week-long writing retreat, just making space and creating this belonging, again, key William & Mary value that we certainly hold up also in SCP. The book itself has an arc. There are 7 primary documents that help tell the story of the founding of the Williamsburg Bray School, its opening in September of 1760, its operations, particularly through key years of 1762, 1765, and 1769, because those are years that Robert Carter Nicholas, in particular, trustee in Williamsburg, was writing and reporting to the Bray Associates, the funders in London, about the operations of the school, about the progress of the students. And in each of those years, again, 1762, 1765, and 1769, also included a student list that had been compiled by the teacher and wager. So those years are extremely important in the history of the Bray School. And we have other documents that show the decline and ultimately the closing of the Bray School. So we have this nice arc that develops, and on that arc is where the essence of the book is, and that is the essays that are written by our many contributors. Contributors who are part of the descendant community, who are part of Will and Mary, who are part of Colonial Williamsburg, and often part of more than one of those entities, with various experiences across these institutions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole to kind of continue the story of our journey.
Yeah, so I think the first thing I want to say is I am also, it's a mutual admiration society between Maureen and I. Deeply humbled and appreciative that Maureen asked me to be part of this project. I am the graduate assistant for the William and Mary Bray School Lab. I've also been portraying Ann Wager, who was the teacher of the Bray School. I can't believe I'm saying this, for 8 years. And so that was my first foray into studying the Bray School, as well as talking with Terry Myers. But I think ultimately for me, this book, and I just want to take a minute to acknowledge those on the Zoom call who've been here through this whole journey, all of the contributors, but there are also some other individuals here tonight who have just been here from the inception of the William and Mary Bray School Lab and much earlier than that. So really, I think this book personally is a testament to all of you. For me, I was thinking about what this book says for me, and Maureen sort of laid out the arc, 7 key archival documents transcribed by students at the William and Mary Bray School Lab, and then analyzed, studied, and written about by the 35 different contributors for this book. It's incredible, 35 contributors for this book. And really one of the intentions of this book was to show deference to knowledge, but not necessarily title. So here's what I mean by that. Academic works can be very hierarchical sometimes. Those who have PhDs tend to be able to have more access to writing a book. And we really wanted all of the contributors to share equal weight because they all have incredible knowledge. And I know they will all, if they so choose, share with you sort of their experience in writing for this book and what this has done, and how they've shared their collective knowledge. But we had undergraduate students write for this book. The largest swath of contributors to the essays were descendants. We used the descendancy title very broadly, using the 2018 Summit of Interpreting Slavery rubric, which I know some of you have heard Tanya and Elizabeth and Maureen and I talk about. But ultimately, this book is about collaboration, but it's also about really getting the public, getting individuals to think more broadly about how we tell stories and how we tell stories that are as messy and as complicated as the Williamsburg Bray School. I said this recently in a talk I gave. The Bray School story is one of extreme violence and extreme hope, and they live side by side with one another, which is really deeply uncomfortable at points in understanding our past. But we have to look at all of that in its complexity. The Bray School was established by the Church of England, which was, of course, the colony of Virginia's official church prior to the American Revolution, deeply pro-slavery, deeply about the term they use in the school rules is inculcating, indoctrinating children into this belief. And yet we do see students resisting this form of instruction. And many of our essayists wrote about that. And so at the heart of this book is the stories of the children and the 87 names of students who we know, as well as the hundreds of names of students who we don't know. There's a possibility, I think, with this book too. I like to see this book as a stepping stone. It is the culmination of a project, but it is not the culmination of how we tell the Bray School story. This is just the start. And so ultimately, that's how this book has impacted me, but also was certainly Maureen and my intent with the book is to center the students, center the children, center the complexity of the story with respect to all different types of knowledge, both collectively in the past and collectively in the present. So I'm just deeply honored to, some of you have heard me say this before, I'm honored to be a collaborator on this project. I have a hard time saying co-editor because I've learned as much, if not more, from our essayists than I think I can ever share with any of them.
And I think because we do have a number of new participants in the Zoom this month, we want to make sure that everyone is clear on the general, we talk about the arc of the letters and so on, but just make sure that everyone has kind of common grounding in the history of the school itself. And the school, when I'm talking about the school in that context, I'm talking about the operations of the school. When we talk about the Williamsburg Bray School, there are different layers or different dimensions that we want to be clear about, because sometimes we are talking about the operations of the school as an educational enterprise. Sometimes we are talking about a collective of students who pass through the school as children for various periods of time. And then also sometimes there is the default to the building itself. So Nicole, can you just really quickly take us through just some key information about the Bray School as an educational enterprise and also about Ann Wager?
Yeah, absolutely. And I promise I will be succinct on this because Maureen knows I can talk ad infinitum about it. But ultimately, the Bray School, as Maureen said, operated for 14 years, the Williamsburg Bray School. There were other Bray schools in British North America, but this book is centering particularly on the legacy of the Bray School in Virginia. Wasn't called the Bray School in the 18th century. It was usually called the Negro School or the Negro Charity School, but that is now a term that scholars use to define this particular institution. Funded by the associates of Dr. Bray, I'm sure you're sensing a theme, who were named after Reverend Dr. Thomas Bray, an extremely prominent Anglican minister in the Church of England, although perhaps less known outside of Church of England circles today. He established 3 major charitable organizations within the Church of England, 2 of which are still 2 of the largest in the Church of England, the Bray Associates being the last one. And according to their meeting minutes, meant for the quote unquote Christianization of those of African descent and in some cases indigenous descent. The Bray School in Williamsburg gets started in part through a relationship between the associates of Dr. Bray and Benjamin Franklin. And eventually the school is run for its entire 14 years by Ann Wager, who was a white widow here in 18th century Virginia. Lots of different opinions on Ann Wager and her history. We're still studying and learning more, but we know she had 2 children, one who was a member of the House of Burgesses, and the archaeological records. And in fact, Ashley McHuston, who was the staff archaeologist for Colonial Williamsburg, wrote an essay a little bit on how we can learn about Ann Wager and the students through what we're finding. Ultimately, though, the school's main ambition was to assimilate those of non-European ancestry into the beliefs of the established church. So being pro-slavery, in support of slavery, and using textbooks and materials that supported this idea. However, there is a difference between an intent of a school and then how people utilize it. Also, equally important to note is the difference between the intent of a school, how people utilize it, and how children consume that information, because we are talking about children. So most of the students, according to the records, were between the ages of 3 and 10. The one student list that has student ages that is extant is in this book. So the 7 chapters, the first chapter focuses on 2 key documents that really center the founding of the school. So the Bray Associates writing to individuals in Virginia, in Williamsburg, about the intent of the school and establishing it. The second chapter is a little bit more about the formation of the school, what's actually happening on the ground. And so that focuses on a letter from 1762 that highlights some of the increasing tension that the school creates, as well as a student list and school regulations. And the Williamsburg Bray School was the only Bray school pre-American Revolution to explicitly list its regulations. Then you have the 1765 student list and letter, so showing increasing tension. 1769, we begin to see again even more of a fracture between the British metropole of London, where the Bray Associates are housed, and in Williamsburg, increasing tension during the American Revolution. And then the last chapter focuses on the death of Anne Wager, the closing of the Bray School, and the Bray Associates ceasing operations, again, pre-American Revolution in British North America in April of 1777. So there are lots of documents about the Williamsburg Bray School, but the 7 documents in here really give you a wide arc from formation to students engaging in the classroom and what that may have been like, to the ceasing of operations itself, in part due in 1774 to the death of Anne Wager.
Thanks, Nicole. And I think it's really easy. It's very even tempting to kind of imagine that when the Bray School closed in 1774, that the children were somehow frozen in time as children. Even the book cover clearly nodding to the fact that children were educated at the school. They didn't stay children, right? They grew up, and the Bray School closes with the death of Anne Wager in the summer of 1774, just 2 years shy of the year that we associate with the Declaration of Independence, right? And the beginning of the kind of formal beginning of the American Revolution, although there are revolutionary kind of undertones already circulating. But these children, some of who, started when the school started in 1760, by the time the school closes, they are much older. And I really like to think about, in this idea of writing a new history and thinking differently and broadly, these are founding children. I like to think of them as founding children. We like to talk about founding fathers. We've come a little way in talking about founding mothers even. But these are founding children and young adults who are also entering this new republic and helping to shape this new republic that is the United States of America. So I think it's important to think about that in that context as well. But the theme of this evening, Bray School Stories, Writing a New History, I think is, again, the testament to the power of collaboration in the book. What can happen when we have supporters of different sorts, partners, collaborators, different champions, those who say yes and continue to say yes over and over and see the project to completion. I'd like to, because we're at the halfway point, I'd really like to, with Elizabeth's permission and with her direction as host, really kind of lean into the writing a new history component of the evening. Does that make sense, Elizabeth?
I think so. Yeah.
And I really would like to turn back the microphone to contributors to really talk about, if they would like to talk about kind of the essence, succinctly the essence of their particular essay, or if they want to talk more broadly again about what this means in terms of writing a new history. Because we don't have while we're talking about documents and using documents to frame the book, there is in no way that documents can tell the entire story of the Bray School, of its legacies, the resilience being key among them. So I really want to turn the conversation and make it a broader conversation about how collectively we are contributing to writing a new history of the Bray School.
Perfect. Thank you to both of you. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, I think, at this point, so people can see each other. And also, I want to make sure that, and I can put that back up if I need to. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Stop sharing. Terrific. I also want to make sure that we recognize that Theodora Ashby has joined us. She is also a book contributor as well as a dissenting community member. Wanted to welcome you to this evening. Yes, so what Maureen said, book contributors, definitely want to hear what your experience was like. And we can start perhaps with people in the room with Tanya Meredith. Since we have some people there. I will say that from where I'm sitting, it's really hard to see everybody. So you may want to move to that front row a little bit when you're talking. But we'd love to hear from you. And then we'll turn to contributors who are joining us online. Someone has to be the one to go first.
I didn't contribute. Oh, sorry. I really don't want to go first, but.
Don't be shy and speak up.
No.
Okay.
I'll go.
No,
I really I don't know what to really say about the experience because I'm still in it. It's the beginning of something. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I see it as a platform for unearthing so much more of our history that's been erased or covered up or removed or just not told or even thought about. So it's like the beginning. We're giving birth to something. You know, how far it's going to go, what all it's going to manifest, I'm not sure. But I'm actually very appreciative to have been a part of the experience and to still be a part of the experience. I really appreciate the fact that so many of the descendant community members are contributing to this book, going through a grad program and learning about African American history and reading what someone else who has no connection to your ancestry, writing about your ancestry, is like having someone rub that rough paper on your skin. It bristles, you bristle, because how can that person tell my story? How can that person know my story? And allowing descendant community members to write their history is so compelling and so amazing. Because, and this was verbalized by a member of the descendant community in one of the oral history interviews. You know, they said, even as African Americans, we can think we know what they feel, but it's different when you're a descendant. So having that descendant voice in this project to me is imperative, but so special.
very nice.
It was and remains to be a very moving and deep experience for me because you had to really dig deep, trying to interpret what the letters were saying and to get your feelings out about, the letters. And again, I guess I agree with you with being a descendant and being African-American descent. It takes on something different. Like it's part of your lived experience, your DNA, and you have this empathy or this compassion and this feeling. And it's like, you're talking about you or your children, or your experience. We're an extension of that experience. As an extension of the Bray School, our experiences, but to look at them and to wonder, because I look at it and I say, okay, yes, it was a school, and okay, there was education, but they were enslaved. So what has being enslaved always meant to me? What has chattel slavery always meant to me? So for me, it was this difficult trying to, but not really difficult. I was seeing it for what it really was. For me, again, it's difficult to separate the two, to say, oh, there was education, and oh, they were children, and they could skip to school and, walk these streets like I did when I was a child, walk the streets of Colonial Williamsburg and skip and play without a care in the world. That was not their experience. It's no way it could have been their experience. So it was just, it was important I didn't think at first, I was like, no, not me. But now I realize it was important for me to be a part of the project. Because again, we're an extension of them. I'm that, fast forward, I'm that child that walked on those streets. And then I've heard stories from, my mother's generation and generations before her, of what their experience was. But then to have to dig really deep and look at their experience, that was some pain, because they were children. So yeah, it's been important. It's been, and doing the work that I do now in education as I do what I do. So it all just made sense to be a part of it. But I am greatly appreciative, and I don't think the project could be what it is without the descendant community. And I'm thankful for, Maureen and Nicole and Elizabeth and Tanya, and everyone who made the effort to make sure that we were included and didn't stop reaching out when some of us said no at first. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm just extremely grateful to have even been asked to be involved. I mean, I feel like I could have easily been left off the list, but I'm grateful to have gotten a chance to throw my hat in and say something, because I think all these schools of indoctrination of children from marginalized communities in the 18th century are such an important story to tell. I'm not a Bray School descendant. I'm not a member of the African American community, but I had a lot of anger reading through the sources and learning the story. But then to see how it connected to a lot of the Indian school projects just was very eye-opening, because it simultaneously is more enraging to think about how this was such a large, widespread project that so many people had to be on board with and so much money had to get thrown behind. But also almost comforting in that, like, oh, you're not alone. Like, there are so many ways in which this project was so big that no one community could have fought this and won, I feel like. So it's kind of comforting to take the blame away from one's, community by saying, like, well, nobody could have fought an institution so large on both sides of the ocean. So I think learning how widespread it was very, it was just an interesting emotional experience to go through. I wish that we could say that we were at a point where the method by which this book is composed is just de rigueur or normal, but it's not. I mean, we're in a very brave space, and I'm super proud of this team for pulling together. And again, thank you to Maureen and Nicole and everybody at the Bray School Lab, Tanya, Elizabeth, because we could not have done this without you guys pushing as hard as you did and being so organized, being so passionate to bring everybody together and be that glue, because we are in a day and time where I just feel like, oral history is still getting kind of naysayed, and being told that it's just not part of the academic rigorous scholarship yet. It's still meant to be on the outside, but here we are foregrounding oral histories. We're still being told that descendant community members' contributions or their opinions don't matter as much, because it's more important to listen to the people with the PhDs. Well, that's not what we're doing here either. The fact that half the book is written by descendant community members is a huge statement that we're making, and I don't want to hide that in any way, shape, or form. I think that's out in front on purpose, and I'm extremely proud to just be a part of it.
Thanks, everybody. Anybody else in the room want to share before we turn it over to the people in the boxes on the screens? All right, I see that Teddy, you've already unmuted yourself. Are you ready? Do you want to share? It looks like you're ready to kind of share.
I'll go.
Oh,
You
Brunel.
know,
Okay, good. All right,
yeah.
Brunel.
You go first. You go first. I'll go second.
Okay, as I said earlier, I'm eternally grateful to be a part of this journey, and this is going to continue. When I started writing, I looked at a couple of the pillars that I was going to, or the prism through which I was going to view that material. And in the title, conflict, there's nowhere around, not that conflict was not there. It was during, you know, the antebellum period, during slavery. Community. A lot of times in older writing, you will see that when Black people were brought off of ships, they were this whole new being. And I said, no, that's not possible. They brought culture with them. Culture brings community. That's why my title, Conflict and Community. And somewhere I read about a saying that Maasai, East African warriors had when they met one another, and their question was, how are the children? So therefore, you know, how you can gauge the community through how the children are. So those are the things I started to look at, and how I went through the writing. I scrapped one whole essay. I looked at it and said, nope, that goes into the trash can, and started again and revised some things. And Maureen, you were correct, because I just recently came across a piece where around 1770, what they called the Boston Tea Party happened also in Yorktown. They went into Yorktown and threw a bunch of tea off of some ships. So those activities, you know, that's what, 12 miles away. So still looking for my family there at that period of time. Haven't found them yet. But like I say, again, thank you for the opportunity. I hope I got my points across with those pillars, conflict and community. And also you see that those very basic educational structures occur then, and they still occur now. And at the end, that trauma occurring then is occurring now. And you heard me talk about my grandmother and her court case for my uncle. Well, once he was admitted to school, her next group of letters were about, what are you teaching him? So there we're still there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard.
I'm second. So I want to thank you also. I mean, I'm eternally grateful because now things that I heard of or so forth through the family conversations have actually become true. But I want to say this, Maureen and Nicole and Elizabeth, it was such a challenge because I'm not a writer, and when I picked out my letter, which was, I think, letter number 4, I read that letter backwards, forwards. I almost sang that letter. I said, please talk to me and tell me what to write. I was like brick wall, brick wall, brick wall. And then something happened, and I began to click. And like you said, I made several drafts. Like you said, you threw them away. I made drafts, but the other part that I enjoyed was, because I'm a genealogist, I researched everybody. I researched everybody I could and everything about the Bray School associates, members. I have Ben Franklin. I'm reading the presidents in order, but I also have Ben Franklin's books on Ben Franklin. So I read about it. So I did a whole lot of research, and then I went back to that draft, right, the outline and everything. And then I thought about my family, and then I tried to make the letter kind of also. I tried to bring the history of my family along with that letter. Anyway, that was such a wonderful challenge, and I go around telling people I'm published. I got paid. So the whole experience, and the fact that my ancestors are no longer invisible. I mean, I knew who they were, but nobody else did. And so now they're known people. They're known children who became people, who became adult people and so forth. And so I think that my grandfather and his father and his father and his father are so happy that I did that essay and that you all encouraged me to do it, by the way. And you gave us enough time. Thank you for that. You didn't rush us. Thank you for that, because this wasn't something I could rush. So anyway, I am so happy. And so I'm writing something else now on blacks in the military. So now I'm like becoming a writer. That's right. So
Great.
thank you.
That's great.
And the
Teddy,
Ashby's, thank you. And the Ashby's, all of Ashby's, they thank you because I showed them the book. I sent out to my group email of Ashby's the book and my essay and so forth. And they are very, very pleased and proud. Thank you.
and I'll say, Teddy, you did very much bring your family along with you in that essay, and we collectively thank you for that as well.
Yeah.
Can I share something really quickly? This is
Please
Johnette.
do. Please do.
In the very beginning of this process, Nicole, Maureen, Elizabeth, Tanya talked about community an awful lot, almost ad nauseum. Every time we had a meeting, the word community was brought about, and they weren't talking about the quote unquote descendant community. They were talking about the community that we were forming as people who were researching, studying, and writing on the Bray School. And one of the most exhilarating things that occurred out of the beginning of this process is that we did form a community. We are a community. Every single person, from the youngest intern to whoever, Anne Marie Stock, all of you are a part of my collective family at the moment. And speaking of collective families, I discovered my Jones family through this process and met cousins I didn't know. I discovered I was part of the Ashby clan and had no earthly idea, because I was encouraged to do more genealogical work because of the work that we were doing. What was important to me about having been an interpreter and working on this letter, and I hope I get the right words for this, is I never told my story in the late 1980s, 1990s. I never got a chance to tell a story about me. Nobody who looked like me. The heroes of every single story that I told looked like the other part of the population, less melanated. And whenever anybody wanted to ask me a question about Black people in the 18th century, they would always touch my hand first, I guess, to soften the blow before you talked about slavery. Well, with this project, I get to tell a story about people who look like me, and I got to bring them back. And for me, none of those children will ever be buried again. And I thank you all.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you.
And I think that there is a community.
Send me a picture of you.
There is a community that we've created, and we welcome others to join that community as well. While I'm thinking of it, and I don't want to forget, there are individuals on the Zoom tonight that are part of this community and have played roles, some longer than others, but have been impactful as well. So I have to, once again, both a contributor, but also a trailblazer, and that is Terry Myers. So Terry, again, we thank you for your perseverance, and we thank you for your unwillingness to kind of let this Bray School story fade into the past by continuing to point to what was proven ultimately to be the structure. If we talk about stories and structure, the structure that is the Williamsburg Bray School that is now in its current permanent home and looking much more, very much more like its former self from 1760. So I want to acknowledge Terry Myers. I also want to acknowledge Steve Colhagen as a partner, for a very important partner in the creation and beginning of the William Mary Bray School Lab. I also want to acknowledge, well, not founders of the lab, but people who have been partners coming along with us for a number of years now, and that is Margaret Gunn and Ken Levine, who are also on the call tonight. So community has different dimensions, and I wanted to particularly acknowledge those individuals. And there are others, if there are others, partners that other staff want to recognize before we get too much closer to 7 o'clock. I want to welcome that as well, but I wanted to acknowledge those individuals for being here tonight. Thank you for being champions and partners and supporters of our work.
I'm wondering, actually, I'm looking at Bonnie Johnson's face and I'm looking at Don Edmiston's face. I'm wondering if either one of you would like to also kind of share what your experience was and maybe even what you hope people who read this book will take away from it.
I'm gonna go ahead and I wasn't gonna say anything because I feel like I'm in an episode of The Twilight Zone. This is deja vu. And we are reliving it. And I want to thank you all for being brave and bold and not stepping down and not stepping back, particularly now. Here it is, almost 250 years later, and we are reliving the same thing over and over again. We're playing out the same scenario, but with different players, different situations. And it's like, and I want to read from my book, my excerpt, because this is how I feel. I feel like we have not learned from the past, and we will continue to repeat it over and over again until we get it right. Different scenarios, one thing, one little change. The thing that's different now is none of us are slaves. That's what's different now. Some of us were free and some of us weren't. And the nation during that time was going through a time when they were trying to learn what freedom was. So I want to read just from here because I think it will express it. I had to watch a whole lot of Hallmark and comedies while I was doing my piece because I could not. And if you recall, I was stuck on my title, not seen and not heard, because that's what I felt. They did not want us to be seen, and they did not want to hear us. So I just want to read it because I feel like that expresses it better than I can, and it'll keep me from, that thing we Huntleys do, cry. As we approach the 250th anniversary of our nation, seems we have not learned from past mistakes. There is a move today not to address the painful parts of history. Variations of what is going on today, including destroying books and humanizing artificial intelligence, played out in movies I remembered as a child. What happened in the past cannot be undone. We all need to put on our thick skin and come to terms with it because grappling with our past can be difficult, but not impossible. Only way to heal is to reveal the truth and do better. And that is what I commend you all for doing, revealing the truth to make sure we do better, especially now. We cannot go back. We have to keep pushing forward. And that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Thank you,
I
Bonnie.
appreciate that very much. Don?
Yeah, I just said all I want to do is express my appreciation to all of you, and I wonder if Terry Myers is still on the call, because I will say one of my greatest joys, and I concur with Yvonne and Teddy and others, like this was a hard process, and to try and understand and contextualize and communicate with compassion and enlightenment and resilience, and I just during and for those of you who were not part of the process, because Maureen and Nicole so aptly led us through a process that included monthly meetings and engagements with one another from the very start. But I only know Terry Myers through his engagement during those meetings, and I've always wondered, is this what he expected, or what has he learned through this process that he, yeah, I would just love to hear his thoughts now that we're at this point in the process. So I will cede whatever time I have to him.
Well, thank you all for all your very kind comments. I can't tell you how moving it is to me to see how this is all unfolded. When I started on this, I was interested, first of all, in the structure itself, and then I got interested in the association between the college and its history of slavery and race relations and the Bray School. And I think it has developed and evolved in wonderful ways. I think the focus on the children and on the descendants and on the complicated existence of the Bray School, because it was both an educational undertaking, and it was also an oppressive undertaking in many ways, in the sense that it, as everyone has acknowledged, is seeking to acculturate these children into a life of harsh slavery. But I think one of the most moving things in my entire life has been to see how Maureen and Nicole and others have brought all this along and just made it a powerful force. When I think of the impact of the reconstituted Bray School in colonial Williamsburg and its impact on the generations of Americans who will come here and learn about the presence and activities and importance of the African-American community of the time and later, it makes me very, very, very moved. So I thank you all.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. I do want to acknowledge, in their absence, I do want to acknowledge our Colonial Williamsburg Foundation publication partners. We've talked about things at the beginning and through the writing process, but while that was going on, there was another process, and that was getting things ready to move into the ultimately the publication phase. So in their absence, I must thank Catherine Wittenberg, Jody Masenka, and Katie Roy. That was our team of Colonial Williamsburg Foundation partners that put together and ultimately produced the beautiful book that you have. So the aesthetic sensibilities, the sensitivities to the history, the high standards for creating what is both incredible content and beautiful presentation come together through their work. Additionally, I've already mentioned Anne Marie Stock, Presidential Liaison for Strategic Cultural Partnerships at William & Mary, but must also clearly thank President Catherine Rowe of William & Mary and President Cliff Fleet of Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, who co-authored the welcome in this book. And again, speaking to partnership and collaboration. And I would love, I was just thinking about, I know a lot of people have a copy of the book with them, beside them, within reach this evening, either as contributors to the book or people who have copies. I would think it would be really cool if we had, for those who want to turn on the cameras, if you have a copy of the book with you, if you would hold it up, we could get this whole kind of mosaic of these Bray School, and I'm gonna reach over and get my copy of the Bray School book. And I think that'd be a really cool kind of capture. So if you have your camera, if you have a copy of the book and you would like to put your camera on and just hold it up, I think that's really, really cool. Okay. So some people are still turning the cameras on. I know I'm just dropping this in your lap, so you might need to get the book.
I'm snapping the picture for you, Maureen, so that none of you put your hands down.
Okay. So this is the power of collaboration. And who had oh, Tanya, can you repeat that quote? I think it was your quote that the quote that you shared earlier this afternoon about when you break down the impossible. I'm doing a terrible job.
Whenever you exclude the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
And I think that's what we did. Thank you, Tanya, for sharing sharing that with us. So I think that it speaks to high standards and goals and thinking expansively and truth telling. So thank you, everyone, for that. Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yeah, wow. I know we are just hitting 7, we're just a little past time right now. I certainly wanted to offer, if there's anybody who has a kind of a burning question that hasn't been put in the chat, to the group that has joined us this evening who are not part of the book contributor community. Any questions, any thoughts, any reflections? Just want to be able to make sure that we are able to hear feedback from you all for this evening's session. And if not, that's okay.
Remind that there is one more book signing this coming Saturday. That would be December the 7th from 1 to 3 p.m. And that will be at the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation or Colonial Williamsburg Visitor Center on Visitor Center, is it Drive? Visitor Center Drive. But at the Visitor Center in the bookstore space there. Was it Revolutions bookstore? So we've had some great opportunities to engage with the public at the first 2 book signings, and we have one coming up at the end of this week. So if you already have a copy and you'd like to have it signed, we can sign it. Again, we've continued to make this a group signing, meaning that any contributors who are available, we welcome you, invite you to come, and also because people are really excited when they can get more signatures in their book from the contributors, not just the editors, but the contributors. They are loving it. So we are very much looking at this as a group celebration, very much like what we're doing this evening.
Right, exactly. And I want to thank Maureen and Nicole and all the book contributors, but particularly Nicole and Maureen for leading a great discussion and getting everybody launching everybody into this this conversation tonight. We are past time and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, I appreciate having every one of you be a part of this journey, and it is still a journey. The building itself was dedicated. It will be open to inside interpretation come the spring, but the research is still continuing, and the book is, just because the book has been published doesn't mean we're stopping. This is, again, it's one marker on this entire incredibly long, fruitful journey. We'll be back with a new session in January, 2025. Oh my goodness. So, but please stay in touch with us for the latest news and happenings from the William & Mary Bray School Lab. Be sure to check out our website and sign up to receive our weekly bulletins. We're closing out. Oh my gosh, I've been saying this paragraph for a year now. We are closing out 2024, the year of the Bray School. The restored Williamsburg Bray School building was dedicated in Colonial Williamsburg on November 1st and is scheduled to fully open in the spring. The research continues as we work toward discovering descendants of all the children who attended the Williamsburg Bray School. And we can't wait to share our discoveries with you. So thank you all very much again for being here. Thank you to our wonderful editors of the book. Thank you to all of our contributors and essayists and authors for the book. And thank you all for being here this evening.